Okay, in this lecture video, I'm going to be covering something that is called block management or block architecture. And it's going to be a pretty important part of a Flutter application to have a solid architecture so that you can easily add new features to your application. And having this kind of architecture is going to be important so that you can separate out different layers of the application. And basically, there's going to be three parts. The UI, of what you show to the user, the data, and then the business logic, or the sort of like the layer that connects the two together. Um, and so I'm going to be using an example, basically using the Bitcoin data repository on the online that I had shown earlier. And I'm going to run the application now as an Android app. And you will see that very shortly here as I run it.
Please subscribe to this channel and like this video to support this kind of work.
And then I will demonstrate how this application is put together. Okay, so this is pulling data from a remote source. It can, be data that's located on the device, but in this case, it's data that's located off of the internet, off of a remote source. And if you look at the various sections of the code here, I have block, I have model, repository, and then I basically could have another section for just UI or widgets. Okay. And all these sections make up this basic functionality of the Bitcoin. And so if you look at there is here in what looks like a regular kind of Flutter application, there is still the part about rendering the data as a list, and you can see it here looks like that. But we see that the data is coming back through as as this as basically list items off of this object called state. And if you look at state, let's look at what state is coming from. State comes from, if you look up here, this Bitcoin state that we define here. Okay. And so for this particular case, there's really only about three different states. This is the initial state of the state before before data has arrived. The other state of when data is in progress of being fetched or being loaded, and then actually four states, and then success and failure. So success that we got the data, and this is now a list of that data, and then failure if we were unable to load it. And we have right now just one event. Basically, I'm going to tell our app, our component that I want to be able to load the Bitcoin data. And I can define more different kinds of events here, but I just have one. And then here is where the business logic is located. So I would say there is one event called load Bitcoin. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show first the state that it is loading. And then I'm going to do the loading of the data. And then once I have the data, then I'm going to send it back on a success state. If there is a failure, then I send it back on a failure state with the message. And you can see here that I added a little bit of delay just so that we can see the in progress. And I have also, here is the data model of showing the data for each item. And this is the repository of how I'm getting the data or how the data is being fetched. So in this case, I'm fetching the data from a remote source, and um, it could be fetching data from the local device, or it could be doing it could be getting it from the cache data, or in this case, getting it from a remote source. And if you look back over here in the block, it kind of puts this all together. So it says, from the load event, I am going to make a call to the repository to fetch the data. And once I get the data back, and look at this here, I get the data back, and I'm going to basically wrap the data into objects of type Bitcoin, and then I'm going to send back all that data back to the caller. And then if you look at the UI for this, okay, so how does the loading event actually get triggered? So the loading event, or that load event that we saw defined, it gets initiated here, and this just happens to be where I do it, is when this widget is initialized, I add this event into the BloC event queue. And then by doing this, it will cause the event to be executed here. And then if I come back to the main um, here, so if after I've done the loading, then here you can see in the build, there's various sections of it. So there's the block consumer, which says I'm a block consumer of using of this type of block and state. And I have a listener and I have a builder. Okay, so and here is the it's just a reference to the block object. So coming back over here, so there is a listener. So it's saying if while I'm listening for the state, if it is a failure, I'm going to show an error message or a snack message. Um, if during the building, I'm going to pay attention to the state here. And if while the state is in progress, I'm going to show a shimmer effect. And you can see it when I down down swipe. I force the load to occur again, and here is that shimmer effect. Okay. Um, and then when finally when the state comes back as fully loaded, then it will I'm going to do the rendering of the list view. And for each item in the list, I'm going to render a list tile. And you can see that I render it like this. And then I wrap the whole thing with a refresh indicator so that I can swipe down here to cause it to reload. So you can see here that on the refresh, I add that load event again, and that causes this part here to reload again with the delay. So this is now a separation of business logic data, which is composed of both model and repository, and then the UI, which is the shimmer effect, and then the UI component that's part of this main Dart. So three main sections. And if you put these things into modules, and you have many other kind of components like these within a single application, you can have you can use this block for more than just the Bitcoin data. You can use it for saving, say, profile data. You can use it for, let's say, saving favorites or anything like that. Okay.